everybody, I'm Catherine Riles. I'm an artist and painter living in the Southern Appalachian Mountains, and I'm excited to share with you today on this cold, snowy day a little exploration I was doing with my watercolors and an exercise in my sketchbook. I'm excited to share with you how this page came to be, and I hope that you find it useful, and I hope you share in the comments below what are some of the colors that you have found over the years that you don't really need, that are beautiful out of a tube. Maybe it's like a moon glow or something else like that, but maybe you don't really have to have it. It's a way for us to kind of refocus on, we don't need more, we just kind of need to reacquaint ourselves with what we have. And I found this to be a really fun, a really enjoyable way to spend a cold day in my sketchbook, and I hope that you find it equally as exciting and as fun. And yeah, let's get to painting. Hello. I hope you can hear me nice and well. I have this space heater on because we are in a winter storm, and yep, just can't turn that off right now. But I also feel like it's a great time to film for us, and I've been working on trying to come up with and kind of refresh some of my palettes, and specifically I always kind of get inspired by it whenever I've created some new palettes that I've made, and I want to fill them to put them in my shop. I've got a couple little small ones I've done recently that just have 9 colors in them. And of course I don't have them within reach at the moment, but I've kind of been thinking more and more about really familiarizing myself with the colors, with mixes, with the possibilities with certain palettes. So one of the ways I'm gonna do it here, I'm gonna show you, is I'll kind of pick a color that I love. So let's say this quinacridone purple. I absolutely love it. But if I've only got like 12 spaces or 6 spaces or something like that, I need to know whether or not I have to have it. So over here I've got a huge palette, so I can fit it in there easily. I can fit a lot of things in there that I usually never use. I bought this Art Toolkit Folio palette just as a way to sort of have all of the paints that I own and occasionally need for specific projects, to have them in one place. So that's what that's for. So that's why I can have everything there. And I've also got this other really big old palette that goes with a lid that has a huge ceramic mixing place in it that's like this, but it's bigger. So it is a whole system. I'm gonna be making more of these, but I actually messed up on this one. So this is gonna be my desk palette with all the colors. This was my kind of version of that for traveling with as many colors as I wanted. I know it's not necessary, but sometimes it's just really fun, and I need to refill some of these. But anyway, okay, all that to say, I just think these are really good exercises to do in your sketchbook when you're not really sure what to do next. So so that's where I've started. So this is the first example, is the quinacridone purple. If you have quinacridone magenta and ultramarine blue, and this is my whole bind version that I use. Every quinacridone magenta is a different pigment or a different version. If you have like quinacridone rose, that can also work to make this, which I think they sell in a tube that's very popular called Rose of Ultramarine. But you can see here, if I've got these two very popular standard colors in my palette, I don't need to have the quinacridone purple. So as much as I love this color, this is my proof right here to remind myself I can make this mix. Another color that I like having in my palette, and I think I've talked about it before, because I just like, there's something about kind of having the colors of the rainbow. It just makes me feel like, yes, we've got all our colors are here, is permanent orange, but I don't use it a ton. It's kind of just there because I like the way it looks in a palette. So that's a little bit, can you call that like vanity? I don't know what you would call it, but over here I was just kind of reminding myself, of course, this is a duller version, but that I usually will have my brightest yellow, which is Aureolin by Holbein. It's a hue that does not fade. And then Quinacridone Coral is going to be my new warmer red instead of the Pyrrole Scarlet, which I've been loving. It has been a staple, but I'm going to switch over to Quinacridone Coral. Let me show you what that color looks like, just because you might not. Oh my goodness. See, I've already been testing a lot of this stuff before I talk to you about it, because I wanted to make sure I kind of know what I'm thinking. But here is the Quinacridone Coral. I don't know if it's got a glare on it. It's a little more of a pinkish, softer red. So, and the reason I'm switching back to that red is because it's so useful when you do it kind of a light wash of it. It's just very, very subtle. It's going to be great for flowers in springtime. And then with my yellows, I can make a very strong red. So I guess that is one of the things that we're proving here. So I'll go back to that in a second. Anyway, so I kind of tested out a few of these colors. I have added the Aussie Red Gold to this palette, so it is taking the place of the orange that I had before. Here's Quinacridone Magenta with Yellow Ochre, and that's definitely going to be a more muted color. But yeah, so those are some thoughts. We'll go through the reds in a minute, but greens are like a really big thing for me. Sap green is a really fun convenience color, but I want to see if I have some of my other favorites around. Can I mix something that's similar or as good as sap green? Typically, I think on the tube is kind of like your Quinacridone Gold plus a phthalo green, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to do a new shade as my third blue. So I'm going to do, my standard blues are Cerulean Blue Chromium, Ultramarine. This right now I'm using PB29, the Ultramarine Deep by My Mary Blue, which is just very similar to just any other ultramarine. I think they're all about the same. And then for my third one, I'm gonna be using, it hasn't come in yet. I've got like a little bit left on this card. It's gonna be my kind of a cross between blue and green is the Phthalo Turquoise. So it can get a lot richer than that, but I don't really have as much space here. So I kind of want to see if I'm mixing this Phthalo Turquoise with my Aureolin. Nope, that's a much brighter green. But I wonder if I mix just a tiny hair of red in that. I'm not going to be able to get enough color off of this dot card. Not the best color to start with. Well, there we go. So I brought it down a little more earthy with the Quinacridone Coral. So that one I had to do 3 mixes. Another option you can try, we can try our Cerulean. I don't know if this is going to get us to a sap green. If we try Cerulean with Yellow Ochre. This Yellow Ochre is by Holbein, so it's a little bit more purely colored. I don't know if that makes sense. It's not as earthy as like the Daniel Smith version that I have back here. So that one's gonna be a little bit more olive. So that's different. So we still haven't found what we're looking for. I think this is the closest. If I could grab some more of that phthalo off of the dot card, I think we could almost get it there. But let's try ultramarine blue, and let's try it, ooh, splattering water all over my booklet with my Aureolin here. Well, that's about the brightest version of them. that I can kind of get to the sap green pretty quickly, I would say. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good fit. So let me write down what we did here. I've already forgotten. We've got, what did we do here? I'm gonna have to go back and look. I think, was it, I don't remember. This was cerulean plus aureolin. This is why I should write it down quickly. This was ultramarine plus, what did I do? Aureolin. Oh yeah, this was the phthalo turquoise. PHTHALO turquoise plus yellow ochre. That one was quite off, so I would not suggest that. But I think that if we're looking for our really kind of bright, crisp, sappy green, we've got ultramarine and aureolin. I do love to have perylene green in my palette. I guess I could put the perylene over here just to see if maybe it's not necessary. But let's mix the perylene with the aureolin. And I also get a very crispy, not crispy, you know, bright. Get a nice bright color here. And that's nice. The difference between this and that, which are going to be similar in hue, is that this is not going to granulate like the ultramarine. So if you want a more kind of standard flat green, like the sap green, this might be your better bet. So this is perylene green. Plus aureolin. I like the aureolin because it's a little less, I don't know, it's a little less vibrant. It's just a little more muted than the Hansa Yellow. The Hansa Yellow Medium, I've always loved it, but I kind of have drifted away from it because it's sort of like, when I've noticed myself using it in paintings to make greens and stuff, it kind of has this really bright undertone to it that is a little bit off-putting. Now, one of the colors that, let's see, that I also like to use a lot of is the rich green gold. So let's put that there. And see if, what do we think? Can we mix this or do we want to keep it? I just love this color as a convenience color for making greens. But, I mean, right there we've got a lot of different beautiful options. So that was not what I meant to do. I went back, picked up more of the same. So let's see if we can make this aureolin mixed with a tiny bit. So some of this is going to be based on proportion. The aureolin with a little bit of ultramarine. I'm just doing like little grassy little blobs, but this is an option there. It's not quite as muted. You could add like a dab of yellow ochre to that to kind of see. So it's a color that's not necessary, but it is a color like I will consistently hit pan on. But I do, when I have the aureolin, I do find that I use a lot of that. I use a lot of the goethite. I use a lot of my French ultramarine or ultramarine blue and cerulean blue. I also really love having indigo. So like this is indigo. Now this is the Daniel Smith mixture, which has a base color with it has the base color of Indanthrone blue. I don't have Indanthrone blue in my palette, so my guess is if we're going to try to mix it with what we have, with the ultramarine, maybe a dash of my brown iron oxide here. Now we're getting something closer to like a Payne's gray. Add some more blue. I'm getting a little bit closer. I'm kind of getting some of that depth there. It's not going to be the exact same thing at all, but I can get that depth there a little bit. Maybe even add a little bit of Indian red to this. See what happens. I'm just trying to prove that some of our favorite sort of convenience colors aren't always necessary, especially if you're trying to limit your palette more. And this is a great exercise to kind of prove to yourself and show to yourself what you really need. So this was me trying to mix in indigo. It's not going to be the same, but it's beautiful nonetheless. So this is Richmond versus, and then this is ultramarine blue and brown iron oxide. A little bit of Indian red. So I suggest you just sit down and kind of do that. Think about what color you might think of removing. So for me, one of the colors I did remove from my palette, so I've removed the orange and I've removed the quinacridone purple, and it looks like I could probably remove the sap green and the aureolin. Here is the pyrrole scarlet, which is just such a bright color. And yes, I know I have a lot of palettes. I know I don't need them all, but I do use them all. And all the wooden palettes are ones that I make. So let's see if we can try to make our pyrrole scarlet with some of the colors that we're talking about keeping. So if I try it with my quinacridone magenta, which you can't tell me to get rid of this color, I'm just not gonna. Let's try it with just some yellow. Okay, so I went a little bit too orange, so we're gonna go a little more magenta. Still a little bit on the pink side, a little more yellow. And this one looks like it's gonna be a tricky one to make, but is this the color I'm really needing and using a lot of? Probably not. I mean, honestly, if you look at my paintings, I don't use a ton of red, but that's not a horrible match. It's not a perfect match, but it's not a horrible match. We could try it with the quinacridone coral. And then grab some more aureolin. A little more coral. And it looks like I can kind of get that a little. And maybe I need a dab of the quinacridone magenta with it. So there, I think that we've gotten something a little more compatible, but you see the vibrance of the yellow from underneath. Like it creates sort of this almost shine to it that this remains kind of dull. So up here we have quinacridone magenta. And that's the beauty of mixing your own colors, is you're gonna kind of have a little more interest to the color than just something straight out of the tube. Even down here with the indigo, which I love, but versus this one that I've kind of mixed. It's similar in hue, but it's a little more interesting. Over here, you kind of have a little more separating. Same thing over here, is you're not gonna get that kind of very homogeneous, is that right? Sorry, y'all. And then this one was the Queen Coral. Plus a bit of Queen Magenta. And I'm putting them in order of like which one has the most kind of like ingredients on a label. I have the least Queen Magenta, so I'm going to list that last. So, okay. So that's showing me kind of how this color can be a little bit obsolete for me. I love cobalt blue, but let's go ahead and try and see whether or not we can live without this one, which I love. It's a granulating blue. It's really your kind of like mid-range true blue. And this is one I've basically taken out of my palette, but it still has space in this one because this is, I think that's 20 or 21 wells. So that's a lot of space. Like in this one, it's down to 13. So, you know. So I would start with the warmer. See how much more towards purple? That's why this is warmer, even though it's a cool color. It kind of looks a little more purple than that one. And then we'll cool it off with cerulean blue. See if we can get kind of a nice, yeah. So we can get our mid-range blue between those two colors, and we're also gonna have the granulation will probably be a little bit more interesting as well. So right there with our cerulean, yeah, how do you spell I know how to spell this. I can do it. Cerulean, blue chromium, and I probably have more of the ultramarine. So similar but different. I wonder if I add like a little more of this blue right here. I wonder if you have something that's a little more like the phthalo blue in your palette, which I love paintings that have phthalo blue in them. I just don't use that color. I think that you might be able to get yourself a little closer to the cobalt with that cooler blue than the cerulean. But okay, so there we have that. Another color that I love to have. Well, I love to have goethite. I don't think anything else is gonna replace goethite for me. So I'm starting to lay down the colors that I'm keeping. Goethite granulates, and if you compare it to yellow ochre, and this is the yellow ochre, like I was saying, by Holbein. I'll compare it for you to this yellow ochre by Daniel Smith. So see, that's just very different. I would say this color is more in between those two, and I kind of like those two separately. So this is goethite, yellow ochre, and this is yellow ochre, Daniel Smith. Let's see, what are some other colors and mixtures I think are very fun? I might look at my cheat sheet over here. Let's see if this will come into, how wet is my paper? Some of it's pretty wet. Okay, so these are some of our rich green gold mixtures. These are mixtures with quinacridone gold. So I haven't talked about quinacridone gold yet because I feel like I don't need it. I am leaning towards Aussie red gold, even though it's a tiny bit fugitive, like kind of the brightest yellow of it can be fugitive. These are my mixtures with the yellow ochre. I really love some of these earthy tones that you get. This is with cerulean, this is with the ultramarine, that's with the cobalt, but I'm not using cobalt, and this is with the phthalo turquoise. So see how special that is, the phthalo turquoise. These are burnt sienna. I love that color. I've kind of been doing without it for a while. Let's see do we need it. Let's see, it's a burnt sienna. The version that I use of burnt sienna, or I call it a version of burnt sienna, is Pompeii Red. It's the PBR7, which is the same, but it just granulates. It's just not as fine a mixture. So, okay, so if I want to maybe try to make space without the burnt sienna, or if I wanted to try to get rid of the Aussie red gold, which I'm really having a hard time letting go of. Okay, so let's see what we can do. We can try, that was the same color. I love Indian red. Nothing else really can replace that in my mind. But I could be proven wrong. We could try it. And let's see what it does with the yellow ochre. Two very more opaque colors. It's not quite as vibrant red there, but maybe if we add a little bit of the quin coral to that. Similar, but not the same. And then a lot of times, like the burnt sienna, which is really useful, I'm going to mix a little bit more of this for us, is for making grays with your blues. So a traditional kind of Payne's gray is with ultramarine blues. So let's mix that and see. We can get that is actually a really beautiful gray. It's a little bit on the yellow side, so let's add a bit of quinacridone coral back to that. Maybe a bit more blue. So I don't necessarily need the burnt sienna. I love it. I love these mixtures. Where are they? They're right up here. These mixtures with the burnt sienna, the ultramarine, the phthalo turquoise. That is a beautiful place to be. And then the cerulean blue. Love that. But goes to show I can kind of create some really cool things without it. Let's remember, what did I do? I did Indian red, plus I did the yellow ochre, plus a dash of quin coral, and then over here plus ultramarine. So there you have it. So that goes to show I could omit this color because I have these other 4 colors in my palette. This is really cool how that one is separating there. And I think it's separating out because these particles from the opaque colors, like the ochre and the Indian red, are so heavy with the ultramarine. It's just kind of doing some interesting things there. So the more you mix your colors, kind of the more interesting, unexpected things are going to happen. The way they're going to settle and separate. I've got some puddling on my page. Excuse that, please. But yeah, I mean, this is all making me feel pretty okay with some of the choices I've made. Gosh, I love that quinacridone purple, but look here. I mean, that is almost a perfect match. I've almost got a perfect match with some of these. I think the sap green, though, is just so special and so vibrant. That would be one that I would consider just having conveniently. Similar to indigo, as long as I've got the brown, a deeper brown. Yeah, I think that's, you base it all on the space that you have. So I'm going to keep my yellow ochre, my goethite. Goethite's going to just do some things that nothing else will kind of be able to do. So if I've got my goethite there, and then I mix it with a little bit of cerulean, I'm just going to get some really cool neutrals and separating colors. So these I think are probably going to be more similar to kind of the mixtures you get with those really expensive like Schmincke ultra granulating colors. So that's what that reminds me of. I don't have those colors, but I'm going to tell myself I'm okay without them, because look at that. That's gorgeous. I could mix the goethite with the quinacridone coral. Let's see what happens with that one. Ta-da! That wasn't that exciting. Not yet. That actually might be a really cool burnt sienna. But look when you water it down. Ooh, that's a beautiful pink. Beautiful, natural, neutral pink. But let's write this down. This is goethite. And this is goethite. So I think doing exercises like this also can make you really excited with your paints again, and just tell, you know, kind of help welcome you back to returning it. Look at that, how much that's separated with those two blues. That's pretty cool. It's not as cool, C-O-O-L, as the cobalt, but you know, it's in there. It's similar. I don't know, y'all. I think this is a really fun way to kind of reacquaint yourself with your colors, get yourself re-excited with what you have, not feeling like you have to have the next best thing. You don't have to have the whole world of color. This is Cascade Green, which is just another one of those colors. I think that one is almost impossible to try to make. I've tried and tried. I've made some really beautiful mixes that are similar, but in terms of really getting that consistency of a color, it's just not something I've been good at. So, I mean, great for y'all that can do that. So I think that like using kind of a Viridian, maybe a little goethite could be similar. Nope. Maybe a little bit of phthalo blue with the goethite and the Viridian. I mean, you can get some really beautiful mixtures if you're kind of trying to make something like that, but making that color itself is hard to do. So these are some more beautiful mixtures that I'm making with the colors in my palette, but nothing quite like the Cascade Green. Just look how rich and vibrant that is. So that could be one of the colors, if you just really love working with that you might want to hold on to in your palette. Like, it's a color like that I would like, yeah, it's hard to mix. Love it. No, Cascade. So that one I can see an argument for, but I don't think I'm going to keep Viridian in my palette. I wonder if mixing it with some of that phthalo turquoise could have helped maybe get it closer to that. But I don't know. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. And I hope you're staying warm and safe. And I'm sending all my love. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.